Welcome and thanks for joining us on the Clive Barker Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the works and worlds of Clive Barker. This is episode 152. It's a news episode, so we talk about the Cabal Cut, which is almost sold out at this point, Hellraiser The Toll, the new novel by Mark Millar and Seraphim Inc., a recent interview with Clive Barker, Imagineer 5, convention appearances, what's going on with Aberrad, all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned. And of course, this episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination shop is dedicated to benefiting the Arts and Medicines program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. Up to 50% of the proceeds will support this program where artist Don Bertram volunteers monthly. Please join us in donating to the program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's a link in the show notes and on the main site. So if you go over on the right, you'll see a big vertical banner on the right side that shows Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. So just click on there and you'll see a link that'll take you where you need to go to get one of his prints or art books, and now you can order his Christmas cards as well and help out this wonderful program. So any friend of Clive Barker's is a friend of ours, and we thank Don for his support. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 152 of the Clive Barker Podcast. This is a news episode, so we haven't done a dedicated news episode in a while. So it'll be interesting to see what we come up with for a title again.
Okay.
We got Jose and David and me. I'm Ryan.
I'm Jose.
And I'm Dave.
Hey.
All right. So big announcements first, I guess. That the Hellraiser The Toll is a new book that is going to be in the Hellraiser universe, I guess. So before the Scarlet Gospels, there was a first witness, and it's going to be Kirsty. So the pre-orders and reviews copies are being sent out as we speak. We already got our review copy as a PDF, so we've started reading that. So what do you guys think about that, and who's writing it?
Yeah, it's really interesting that Mark Millar is writing this one, and it seems to be developed from materials that were in the Clive Barker Seraphim offices, already. A story that Clive had worked out a little bit. I'm excited about it, and I think Mark, having spent so much time editing the Scarlet Gospels, he has some good insight into the Hellraiser.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
I think that this story that's at the origin of Hellraiser The Toll is something that some people out there may have heard us talk about before, which was it was under the working title of Devil's Island, or maybe Heaven's Reply, I guess. Yeah. I hope I'm not saying anything inaccurate. I think that's pretty much what it takes place in a penal colony, in like a prison island. At least that's the opening of it.
Yeah.
And so it's curious. I mean, I've heard that Devil's Island was going to be used for a Hellraiser remake script that Clive Barker was supposed to be working on with Seraphim. Yeah. So I guess if that's not happening in the near future, I guess that they've decided to turn that into a book.
Well, and titles can be confusing because also at one point Heaven's Reply was also a name for when Scarlet Gospels was going to be a short story. Right, the story that was developed into the Scarlet Gospels started out as a short story called Heaven's Reply that was in a bigger anthology volume called the Scarlet Gospels, and it's all a big.
I thought it was supposed to be The Last Requiem, or that was another working title.
Well, I think Alex had told us Heaven's Reply was the name of the Scarlet Gospels at one point, but maybe that could have been a mistake.
I know that sometimes these things have very different working titles. I mean, every Hellraiser fan out there knows.
I know
the working.
I was just going to say, I know my first visit to Clive's office. There's a great big binder called Heaven's Reply, and so it's a little too big for this, for this treatment of a story. So it was something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that sometimes working titles can be misleading. Like Hellraiser's working title at one point was Sadomasochist from Beyond the Grave.
Right.
I don't think it would have had the same impact as Hellraiser.
Yeah. Especially films. Films can really have some bizarre, outlandish things to throw people off in case, information about it leaks.
Yeah.
That's right. And sometimes during production, right? So when someone is doing a big blockbuster production, sometimes they will disguise the name of the production on whatever is visible, so people don't know that they're filming the Transformers 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
So they won't swarm the set with the cameras to post on websites.
Well, and Hellraiser Heaven's Reply was also a title for a subset of the Boom Studios Hellraiser comics.
Right, I remember that.
So that's been kind of floating around. That title's been floating around the Hellraiser universe for a while.
Yeah.
Well, some people have been talking about Mark Miller being the one who's going to write this, and it's already written, by the way, of course. I mean, we already got the copies. That shouldn't even say that. But the thing is, I have confidence in Mark Miller because I've read the Next Testament novel, and I thought it was pretty good. He edited not just the Scarlet Gospels, but he was also, I don't know if some people are aware of that, but he also worked with Abarat. I think it was Abarat 3, Ryan, or was it 2?
It was Abarat 3.
3, right? That's what started his mentorship at Seraphim with Rob Humphreys, who was the VP at the time, and then he was on a way out. And basically, that's how he started, editing Clive Barker's work. And now I think he's feeling confident enough to tackle the story, and so I'm looking forward to that. Like you said, outside of the podcast and then on Facebook, Ryan, it's not. There was a fan that said something about, I want to read books written by Clive Barker. I don't want to read stuff written by someone else. And it's like, well, the thing is that at this point, really, it's not like Clive Barker is ever going to finish some of these stories. So if he feels like his energies are better served finishing Abarat 4 and 5, then I'm okay with it, because honestly, you can't spread yourself too thin, or nothing's going to get finished.
And Scarebaby and the Last Book of the Art. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, and also it's still being handled in-house with having Mark Miller do it.
Yeah.
So it's not like somebody wrote a random treatment and submitted it, and Seraphim was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and publish it. So
it's a double-edged sword having writing a book that's in Clive Barker's canon, so to speak, because it's like, on the one hand, it gets you published, where it might be more difficult, but then on the other hand, everybody's going to inevitably start comparing your writing style to Clive Barker, which isn't fair. He's still his own person with his own style.
Yeah.
And so I think that people who may have brought up illusions of ghostwriting for the Scarlet Gospels, which honestly I don't really believe that anything like that happened, because we saw how much manuscript was there at Seraphim for the Scarlet Gospels. It was a chore to put all that stuff together, cut out the parts that were just offshoots of the story that weren't going anywhere, and just kind of pull the book together. But for some people who aren't fully aware of how editing works, it does involve some measure of feedback and editing. Really, that's the name of the game, is editing. So Clive was always very fortunate at HarperCollins to, while he was there for the most part, to have editors who were very sympathetic and who understood what he was trying to do and gave him the room to take risks. But after Clive was no longer with a publisher like HarperCollins, then it falls on whoever's working with Clive to do a good job editing. So, like I said, I think Mark at least is being really upfront about this. They're doing this book and saying that, hey, listen, this is it's not a Clive Barker book, it's a Mark Miller book, and we're putting things out, and you can see for yourselves the quality of the writing, and I'm sure people will put out their reviews and criticize it. But at least they're not. It's not ghostwriting, because ghostwriting would be people saying that Clive Barker wrote it when he didn't.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, I mean, we've seen how well Mark Millar can write in the Hellraiser universe just based solely on the comic books that he wrote. Mm-hmm. And I think he brought some interesting stories there. And we've seen enough of his writing to know that clearly he wasn't ghostwriting Scarlet Gospels, because Clive Barker's voice is still there and present in that book, versus Mark Millar, who has a very different style, which isn't bad. It's just not the same thing as Clive, and you can clearly see the distinction.
I agree. And so Hellraiser The Tolling is coming in January, and it's being released by
Subterranean
Press. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll be reading it, and we'll be discussing it soon. And we're trying to get Mark Millar to come over and talk with us. So we'll see what happens there.
Jose, you just forgot a word for a couple of seconds.
I did.
Yeah, you forgot Subterranean for a couple of seconds. We just had a commenter earlier that said that I didn't have any business being on this podcast because I couldn't remember Christopher Young's name fast enough.
I'm sorry about that. It's just that I had to get up this morning at 7 to just. I know that's not an excuse, but sometimes I do get a little bit confused with Earthling and Subterranean, and so I was just having a moment of hesitation there. Thank you for filling in the blank.
No, I just think it's funny because that happens to everybody all the time. But
I know.
I mean, if it takes a couple of seconds to say something, the other person fills it in. That's just what we do.
Yep,
That's just normal. That happens every time you have a conversation about stuff. You always forget something and blank out for a second, and luckily we have phones in front of us where we can Google it when we're really struggling.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you'd never heard of Subterranean Press.
Yeah, you're just blanking out. It doesn't matter if you record a podcast in the morning or in the afternoon or late at night. Sometimes you're just going to blank on things.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that you brought up Scarebaby as one of the books that Clive Barker is working on, as well as Aberrat 4. And there's been a new revelatory interview in clivebarker.info with Phil and Sarah Stokes. You guys have probably read it by now. Mm-hmm. And in one of those, in one of the opening paragraphs, they mentioned that they talked to Clive about some of the books that he's working on, but unfortunately the conversation was too spoilery. And so they've decided to break some parts of the interview for a later date when the books are coming out, closer to the book's release. So, but they did slip a little thing about Scarebaby. They said that Scarebaby is not going to be called Scarebaby anymore, right, Ryan?
Yeah, they said, we had conversation about the novel formerly called Scarebaby. So it's kind of like Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince.
Right. So again, this is all we know about Scarebaby is that at one point it was called Scarebaby and now it's not. And it's supposed to be a children's book or a young adult novel?
I think young adult.
Okay.
And I think we'll still keep on calling it Scarebaby until we know something different. Because what
else are you going to call it?
We could call it the next book, but then, Mark Millar can pull a fast one on us and put another book out in the meantime, like the Hellraiser The Toll.
Yeah. So, this one came up pretty suddenly.
Yep. So go check out that revelatory interview. It's a little short, but I understand, they were talking about stuff they probably couldn't transcribe right now. So I hope we'll get to see more segments of that interview surface over at Revelations in the future.
A good bulk of that interview was talking about, well, first of all, Imaginer 5, you can now pre-order Imaginer 5. And so a lot of that, they talked about Imaginer 5 and how that's coming out. But they also kind of started going into Imaginer 6 and the design of it. And there were these gatefold sort of poster-sized pictures inside of it that they thought was like a really cool way forward into this series.
Some of those paintings look really amazing, and the Phil and Sarah have been doing a great job with that, and they're selling pre-orders for Imaginer 5 over at the CliveBarkerArchive.com. So it's supposed to be an 8-book series, right? Because it's one for every letter of Imaginer, I guess.
Yeah. So Imaginer, they at the pace that Phil and Sarah are going, it'll be done pretty quick.
Yeah, another couple of years, and the series will be done, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like they are doing more than one a year, right? If they're pre-ordering now for 5, when 4 just came out in the summer.
Right. I guess, another couple of years, probably this will be done. So whoever owns all 8 deluxe tray cased editions is going to have a really, it's something that's a thing of beauty, I guess. I have one of those, and the only Imaginer volume I have right now. I guess I need to hurry up and get the first one if I want to stay in the race. But yeah, those books are amazing. Much better quality than the that Rizzoli book that came out a long time ago.
Yeah, the
Visions of Heaven and Hell.
Oh no!
You forgot the title. What kind of Clive Barker fan are you?
Oh no!
Yeah, Visions of Heaven and Hell. That's the one from Rizzoli. So
yeah. Yep.
But
and
yeah, these are
and it's
really,
signed
really
and it's
nice.
got a sketch by Clive Barker in it, so I do know what it is.
Yep.
For those
have you had a chance to look at any of these books, the Imaginer books, David?
No, I haven't. I was just, when I was reading this interview, I was like, man, I need to get in on this.
And it may be possible to even buy the first one. I mean, I think...
they're still available. I went and checked that because I was like, oh man, I'm sure I'll probably have to pay collector market prices on the first couple, I would imagine, but they still have them available on the site.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Great news. Mm-hmm. That's great news.
I never really got a good sense. I mean, it seems like the initial run of them was like 1,000, but I never really got a sense of whether they will keep making them on demand or they just still have some.
Yeah.
Well, if you got $500 making a hole in your pocket, you know what you can put it towards. 5 wonderful art books with Clive Barker, where you can just put a blanket in front of the heater and just open up a book, get a nice cup of tea, and just let yourself be immersed into those worlds.
And so that was kind of the bulk of. I mean, they hinted that they had also talked about Aberrat 4, and they had talked about Scarebaby, of course, and the third book of the art, but that was all like taken out of the interview.
Yeah,
I know. And there's so many people who are crazy about the third book of the art.
Yeah,
I remember maybe 2 years ago, I remember that in a seemingly obscure comment on Clive Barker's page, someone asked about the Art 3, and at the time I think it was Thomas Nigovin, who was at the time Clive's assistant, working for the Century Guild. Century Guild.
Yep.
He said that Clive Barker had figured out that day how to finish the third book of the art. So that was kind of a big deal. And I remember I thought, what a scoop. I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to make an article about it. And I did. And I put up an article about it saying, Clive reveals that he has figured out the ending for the Art 3. So I guess now all you got to do is write it, and
that simple task.
Well, and the Art 3 is the new Scarlet Gospels, right? Because that was the book that everybody was asking about constantly. When are you going to do the Scarlet Gospels? When's this going to get finished? When are we going to get to read it? And so now that's done, it's like now it's the Art 3 that they're going to keep asking about.
Oh, yeah. I'm very curious about where Clive is taking the trilogy, because first book for me was pretty good. If it had stopped there, I would have been fine with it, because typical thing, the whole ending seems to be resolved with kind of a nice bow with a few loose threads. But then the second one, Everville, kind of brought back a lot of people we thought were gone, and evolved the story further, gave us some backstory on some characters, and it feels like Clive is inching his way towards touching this sort of heart at the center of like this magical life of America in some ways, like the fantasies that permeates American society and stuff. So I'm really curious to see where he's going to take the third volume of the story, because I have no idea what sort of storylines were left untold with the second volume.
Well, and even Galilei was supposed to be a trilogy, so at some point, that might get closed up also at loose end.
Yeah. I don't know about Galilee. I think the Galilee was very personal at a time when Clive Barker was having a more stable kind of home life, but then that kind of fell to the wayside after there were some bad breakups in the meantime. So I don't know if he wants to return to that romanticism of that story anymore, but I guess we'll find out.
It's kind of like Cabal. I mean, that was supposed to be a trilogy too, but that's never going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we can always dream.
Yeah.
Actually, someone was asking about that on Occupy Midian the other day. They were saying, hey, I love the movie Nightbreed, but I would really like to know, where would Clive take the story after this? Don't you guys think we deserve like a sequel? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that'd be interesting. But the thing is, you probably have to recast a lot of the characters if you wanted to make a movie. As for a book, honestly, I don't really feel that need to get a continuation of Cabal. I'm pretty happy with it because it's like the New Testament. Christ is risen and he goes on his way and he leaves mankind to fare as well as they can with the rest of history. And I think I'm okay with that. The same way I'm okay with Cabal going on that diaspora with everybody else who comes out of the Midian, and just it's interesting to see what stories could evolve from that. And I guess we'll get into that in the next episode, or maybe this episode, if depending on how the news episode goes. But we are going to talk about some Nightbreed comics later, and some of those stories that evolve from the movie, some of them are pretty good, others are less than stellar. So I don't know. It could have gone either way.
Yeah, and not everything needs a sequel or a franchise.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree. And we don't have to keep returning to the same intellectual properties just to milk them, one more time.
It's true. It's sort of this thing in all of us, I guess, that if we really, really like something, we want more of it. And, really we could just go back and read that book again or watch the movie again.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say one thing I wanted to mention real quick before we leave the interview that he did with Phil and Sarah Stokes, and just wanted to comment about how he updated about his health, which I thought was fantastic to know. But I think my favorite thing was his quote to them to not be so British when they made the comment about book 5 looking all right.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, "Don't be so British. It's magnificent."
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And with his health, he had said, like, he's not quite ready to stand up and do stand-up, like, large canvases paintings anymore. But he's hoping to be able to do that in the near future. So that was encouraging. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So he also says here that Aberrad 4 is almost finished, and Aberrad 5 has been plotted, and they're just shuffling those paintings and see which painting goes where for Aberrad 4. So I guess that's Clive is very nitpicky. He's a perfectionist. So I'm sure that process of figuring out which canvas goes in which page in the book is going to be a very time-consuming project. But I'm sure that Clive's the only guy who can do it, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It can't be 10 years in between each book because that's just too long. But
yeah, Joey would graduate from college before he can read the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. Oh man.
Anyway.
Yeah. So and then Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2. You can get it now, and it's available in hardcover. We read the pre-release review copy of it, and it is amazing. I think people should jump out there and get it.
It's wonderful. It's coming out at a nice time that we're celebrating the Hellraiser 30th anniversary not too long ago. And so we talked about it on the last episode, and that's pretty much it. I mean, go buy it, go read it, because it's got some really cool stories in there. It's got a Nicholas Finn story with the origin of Chatterer. It's got the return of Pinocchio from the first anthology volume. And we did a post about it where we put up some 9 promotional pages from the different stories in there. And you can see that the artwork is really something else. And, you know.
And I enjoyed it even more than the first one. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And there's more stories in this one, too. There's like 16 stories where the first one had 11. So, and the pinups, like I said in my article, I love those pinups they put at the end of it. And, you know, they could make a Hellraiser poster book volume 2, you know, because there was one early back in the 90s. There was a Hellraiser poster book that came out with illustrations from the Hellraiser comic books. And so I was saying, hey, Seraphin, you know, think about a Hellraiser poster book. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be great. And one weird thing is I had thought that the hardcover of Volume 1 was sold out, but somebody on Facebook had just said, I just went on there and bought another Volume 1 hardcover, and then you bought Volume 2.
It was sold out for a while, but I think they have the signed hardbacks still available on the site.
Oh, well, that's even better anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're new to Hellraiser Anthology, I'd go pick up both. See if you can still get a signed hardcover.
I am looking at the Real Clive Barker store, and it says here that the hardback is still in stock for $35.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah, still there.
There can't be very many of them. So I, definitely pick it up if you haven't. And, there's a Hellraiser reunion. It seems like this happens often around convention time, but there's a Hellbound reunion at Days of the Dead in Chicago in November.
Yeah, November 17th through the 19th.
Yeah, and so there's going to be a Cenobite group photo op. So you're going to have Doug Bradley, Barbie Wilde, Simon Banfer, and Nicholas Vince, which is a great chance for you to get a picture with all your favorite Cenobites. I'm sorry, Grace Kirby.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be your favorite Cenobite.
No, she doesn't.
Yeah, but one of my favorite memories was the Hellraiser reunion at around Occupy Midian time. In New Jersey at Monster Mania. So that was like Monster Mania 2012 in Cherry Hills, New Jersey. I was there to help out. I was there and helping out Russell at the Occupy Midian booth and got to meet all these people in person, which was awesome. And so if you get a chance and you're in that area, I would definitely go. You can bring all of your Hellraiser stuff and get it signed by all those people.
Yep, and if you're interested in doing the photo, you'll probably want to do it soon because I know Days of the Dead posted not that long ago that it was almost sold out. So.
Oh gosh! So you're going to be waiting in a line.
Yeah.
In a big line.
So make your travel arrangements because this takes place in November 17th through the 19th, and Andrew Robinson is also going to be there. Larry from Hellraiser.
Although he was supposed to be at the one I went to, and he just didn't show.
Oh, really? Wow.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. And it says here he will not be in the photo event, though. So I guess you probably be able to get him to sign your DVD of Hellraiser, I guess, but he's not going to be in the photo op. So
we can all be happy here.
That's a good one. So, yeah, tickets and event details can be found at daysofthedead.com/Chicago. Check it out.
And then, Jose, you just added this last one. This is another.
Oh, right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So there's going to be another Hellraiser screening close to Halloween. It's going to take place in the UK. It's exciting programming by cult classic Collective. So Rochester Kino and Genesis Cinema are hosting a feature Belle de Jour with Catherine Deneuve on September 28th, and then Hellraiser on October 26th. And the tagline for this event is "Cult Films with an Edge," which, I guess the Belle de Jour, for those people who don't know, involves some light bondage and some spanking and whipping. So I think it's very thematically connected to Hellraiser in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a sly ad right there.
I know, right? Hey, get some smut with your Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Check it out. So Rochester Cineastes, Rochester Kino and Genesis Cinema, Hellraiser October 26th. So go to their website and find out more about that. And I'll probably put that on the show notes.
Yes, and the Cabal Cut. We talked about this in a couple of episodes now, but it is available. At least it was the last time I heard. There were about 20 left. I don't know if that's still the case or if they're sold out. I guess.
Yeah, that was crazy, right? I mean, we did the Occupy Midian thing. We were coordinating with the store, the real Clive Barker store, about this new release of the Cabal Cut. And so what we did was you scheduled up a little post for the group, and at the appointed time, I kind of went in and made the group closed, so people who were non-members could not see the posts. And there was an exclusive link for Occupy Media members, so they could go in and get first crack at getting the Blu-ray of the Cabal Cut.
And it was going to be 24 hours earlier, and people started leaking it all on the internet, and so it's like, all right, forget it, it's going wide now. But by that time, all the regular standard editions were sold out, so it still served its purpose. So, it was still a good way for the Occupy Midian members to get in there first.
So they did, like you said, they sold out the standard edition that was being sold for $50 in like an hour, and then some deluxes. People were starting to say, "Hey, I just ordered a deluxe. It's kind of pricey, but I got it because I want it." And there was some controversy about people were complaining a little bit about the price, but I think most people were really happy that they were given a chance to buy a copy of this Cabal Cut. And wow, those things shipped out really fast, right, guys?
Yeah, they did. I cannot believe how quickly those shipped out.
Yeah, it was the very next day. People were like, "Look what I just got in the mail." I was like, "What?"
I know, those things must have been shipped overnight or something by UPS.
Rockets.
Yeah, rockets, drones. They were drones. Yeah. So, wow, those things, people are watching them. I got some feedback from other friends of ours of the podcast, like David Anderson told me on a message that, hey guys, I just got done watching 5 hours of Nightbreed and really happy. And it's like, yeah, thanks. Hope you enjoyed it. And I got the box. My box with the copy came out yesterday, and I put it in the Blu-ray player, and I was marveled at looking at the menu popping up and seeing the play with the commentary track by Russell Charrington or Jimmy Johnson, or you can play it with Occupy Media founders Zelita and Ryan Denhauser. That felt good.
Yes.
And don't want to toot my own horn or our own horn.
You guys should.
Okay.
And it's really cool because it's right there on the title menu. Like that's got to feel amazing.
That does. Yeah, it's kind of got the same feeling that we got when we were in the LA watching the director's cut being played at the Crest in Westwood.
Yeah. And
that at the end there's a special thanks, and there's all those people from Occupy Midian who were there written on the credits. That was kind of like the same feeling. I hope we did justice to the movie on our commentary track. We did the best job we could.
It was, we put a lot of time into that. I mean, I think probably, actually, and one thing I'm noticing too is there were, of course, at first there were a lot of negative comments about the price and the availability, the number of them, people complaining. We had people talking about piracy and all kinds of crap, but all that started to melt away once the people were receiving their copies in the mail, and what I'm seeing now is just a flood of positive comments about how much people love the movie. And I think that's what I want to take away, more than having to kick all these people off Occupy Midian because they're being abusive and jerks and advocating piracy and stuff. But
that's just the internet. That's that's going to happen. So
yeah. And we just got a message from Seraphim right now saying there are still about 20 of the deluxe editions left. So as you're listening to this, you probably still have a chance to, because I'm going to be posting this a little later, but you still have a chance to get one.
That is crazy. That is just crazy. So this thing started selling on Thursday, and there were like 200 deluxe editions, and it seems like from Thursday to Sunday, they already sold 180 of those. Yeah. So that's nuts.
A lot of the Eeyores out there were kind of like, oh, no, they'll sell out in an hour, and I won't get a chance to buy one. But they're still, it's taken a few days. They'll probably be gone by Monday.
Yes. So the Cabal Cut, again, for a long time, this was not even supposed to come out. It was just people were saying this was just a stepping stone, and the puddle jump to the director's cut, and it was just to raise awareness. And like even Russell Charrington in his commentary track that I was listening to briefly yesterday, I didn't listen to the whole thing yet, but he said something like he was talking to Jimmy, and he said this wasn't even supposed to be seen by anybody else. It was just going to be, all I did was I made the Cabal Cut just to show Clive, because we're friends, and I just wanted him to see, hey, Clive, look, this is what the movie could be like. And then, again, like all great ideas, people do them just for the hell of it, and then they realize, oh, wait, there's something in here.
Yeah.
There's a seed for something bigger. And I think that really, again, that it created the whole Occupy Midian movement, and now this is where we're at. And so I really enjoyed that Seraphim in their store page for the Cabal Cut order, they put in that this was also done to show Occupy Midian that their efforts were appreciated, and that this was something that deserved to be put out there. So it's out there now for everybody who got a copy. People who didn't get a copy, I'm sorry, but that's the scale that we're dealing with right now. And who knows, maybe I, for one, have put up the idea to Seraphim. I haven't gotten a reply about it yet, which I understand. I mean, it's still too early to come up with that, but maybe there will be a possibility after the entire run sells out, depending on whether or not Morgan Creek would allow it, to do like a screening, a live stream of the Cabal Cut on the group. I don't know. This is just my idea.
That is cool.
But
yeah, that would be fascinating.
I understand that they want to commit to an answer right now, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but that's just something that we'll do our best to make it happen. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. So
we're seeing a lot of people blaming Morgan Creek for the limited availability of this, but really, I think where the people who really need our attention they need to pay attention is Revolution Studios, the people that own the international rights to Nightbreed, because that's where we have the biggest problem. I mean, I think that once they see the popularity of this, they have the opportunity, maybe working with Arrow or somebody to put together a box set, right? That includes because the director's cut's already come and gone here. But they could put together a box set which includes the director's cut, the theatrical version, and the Cabal Cut, all together into one thing, and people would go crazy for that.
Yeah.
Even people here in the U.S. would be ordering it.
yeah, exactly, and we would be the ones being told, you better get a region-free Blu-ray player then.
Yep, it'll be like the Scarlet Box when that first came out in the UK.
Yeah. We know some people that bought that because at the time there was no promise of getting a U.S. release or a North American release of that.
Yeah, that's what my copy is the UK version.
Yeah.
Guys, I got an idea. It's like, you guys know Blade Runner came out with all those different versions, and it came out in that lovely little suitcase or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I have a box set for Event Horizon that comes in a little kind of a sarcophagus made out of ship parts.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like my vote for that release, if they could put like all 3 Blu-rays in there, or 4 or whatever, be like all the 3 Blu-rays from like the Shout Deluxe Edition plus the Cabal Cut Blu-ray, and it would be like make a little headstone steelbook set or something.
I was imagining like
Ohnaka?
Yeah, geez. Here we go forgetting more names. I was imagining Ohnaka hunched over on the ground, and then you like open up his back and all of the discs explode out of it.
Oh! Oh! I don't know, man. That the discs would get scratched up pretty bad.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. It's just, but there you go.
You'd have to have a little action figure of the little dog, Frank.
That's right. And he goes, oh, and runs down the stairs.
Hey, I've seen some crazy stuff, man. I've seen some crazy sets.
I need to see your Event Horizon one. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, it was a Spanish one that I got. It looks like a little greenish-looking metal sarcophagus. You open up the top. There's a lid that opens up, and then you pull out the slip-cased box from inside, and you open it up, and it's got like these. I'll see if I can get a photo of that. But you guys remember back, I don't know when this came out, probably in the early 2000s, maybe before that. I was listening to your Alien Quadrology episode on your Cinema Bluster podcast, David, recently. And I remembered having seen at one point a set of the Hellraiser Alien films that came in the head of a xenomorph.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever saw
that was Japan exclusive.
Oh, really? I must have seen an import in Portugal, because I saw that in Portugal, and I think that it's a branch of stores called Fnac. I don't think they're big in America, but they're big in Europe. And I saw that one set, and I was like, that's amazing. But I remember it was worth it was probably imported from Japan, because it was like super expensive. It was like hundreds of euros. Yeah. And I just thought, that's amazing. You can just put like that big head on your mantelpiece. Good conversation starter right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Now imagine a headstone saying Midian, welcome to Midian.
You could do one of Decker's mask, and it kind of opens up and has the discs laying in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Decker's briefcase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like those just because it's like, I want my movie collection to fit together on a shelf. I don't want like, here's an Ewok head over here, and
good point. Good point. Yeah. That's the problem with these sets, is that sometimes you just can't find a shelf that would fit them properly. And but so the Cabal Cut came out. Another thing that came out was the Leviathan book, the Leviathan documentary companion book, and I have a copy of it. David, do you have a copy of this?
Yep.
So I made a little post about it. I started off with a little story, a little fantasy story about me going to pick it up from the door and hearing the rush of wings flying away. So true story, by the way. So yeah, I got the book. It looks amazing, and I love the fact that in the back of the back cover, you get, for any Clive Barker or Hellraiser fan, this Leviathan documentary is a dream come true. You get everything and more. The Clive Barker Podcast. Yeah. Yay. So wow, thanks guys for putting a quote from us back in the back cover of the book. That book looks amazing.
My name in print. That was from The Jerk. This is the kind of spontaneous publicity that.
Are you talking about the Steve Martin movie,
yes.
The Jerk?
Yes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
When his name was in the phone book.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. My name in print. So, yeah, what did you think about it? Have you had a chance to read your book yet, David?
I haven't read the whole thing. I've only kind of just glossed through it. I'm a little nervous to handle it a lot. Just afraid of it breaking down over time. And the only reason I say that, I mentioned this last time we talked about it, was that it's like the same build as a Dungeons and Dragons book, and the spines don't hold on those very well after a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, you can put a pencil in between them after a while.
Yeah.
I know my particular volume has kind of I wouldn't call it bow-legged, but the hardcover seems a little warped. I guess I'm going to blame this on Arizona heat because or the flames of hell from which this book has emerged.
Mine is the same way, and it only just recently got hot in Michigan, so
yeah.
But I like the shipping of overseas.
Yeah. But I really like the paper that the pages are made out of. It's just it's that paper that just makes me paranoid about putting my fingers on it because I know I'm going to leave like fingerprints on it. So you just have to really be careful and make sure your hands are dry before you handle it because, oh my God, I'm going to leave my handprints all over this. But a great book full of awesome, chock full of art, great interviews, great behind-the-scenes pictures. Just the composition that they use for the pages is amazing. And I got the copy 9 of 1,000, so that's cool.
Nice. I got 104.
Oh wow! That's a really early one.
I'm pretty stunned because I think I ordered this book quite some time after the pre-orders opened, but I don't know if they were like keeping it for me or something. So I got number 9. It's great.
That's very cool.
And they're still available, right? I mean, in your unboxing video, you said had a link on where to order it.
Yes, it's from Cult Screenings website, which is the same production company that worked on all those awesome documentaries like Fright Night, You're So Cool, Brewster, RoboDoc, Leviathan, and now they're working on one for Pennywise. Nice. The story of Pennywise. So these guys are great. They got their machine going for documentary making, and sometimes they come out and make a book out of it. So really happy that these things are coming out.
Yeah, after getting this one, I think I'm going to order the Return of the Living Dead book that they have.
That's right. That was one of the first books that they made, I think. It just recently got back into print.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So yep, that's it for the Leviathan book as well. So for Hellraiser fans, it's been a really fun period, a couple of weeks, because Hellraiser The Toll coming out, Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2, the Leviathan companion book, and even some Steel books that are coming out. It's just nuts. I mean, Hellraiser is the most alive dead franchise I've ever seen.
Yeah. And then there's like 4 different versions of the soundtrack coming out next month.
Lakeshore Entertainment and Mondo are putting it out, and then
Mondo's doing one that's in the shape of the puzzle box that has the soundtrack broken down into 7 inches.
Oh wow, that is awesome.
Doesn't it seem really stupid that that Dimension's not using this time right now to release Hellraiser Judgment?
It seems like a massive mistake.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Agreed. It's like they're totally missing the groundswell here.
All of this stuff going on with Hellraiser right now is way more important than Halloween release. If they're even doing that, we don't even know that they're doing that. That's just speculation too. And
is the Halloween, right? That they're saying that it's that Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back for Halloween. So I think they're going to do that thing that's becoming popular now where it's like, we don't make another crappy sequel or we don't make a reboot, but we're going to say, well, we're going to keep the original 1 and 2 movies, but we're just going to make sure that the sequels never happen and we're going to pick up the story from there.
Yeah.
And they've done that they're doing that for Halloween. They've done that they want to do that for the Alien franchise, right? They wanted to go back to the ending of the second one, Aliens, and they want to bring back Hicks and Newt and Ripley.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to happen.
They did that with Highlander too. They sort of cut out the Highlander 2, and the next sequel just ignored, pretended like it never happened.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty wild movie. Yeah, that was a pretty wild.
It'll be really interesting to see how it's handled with Halloween if it's a success, because you would imagine that would help get that Alien movie made. If it becomes a success, because you would think it's going to confuse audiences. Oh, we have to forget about all these other movies we've seen, but who knows?
Right, because that movie that they want to make for the Halloween franchise was supposed to be made by the same guy who made District 9 and Elysium, right?
Yeah, Neil Blomkamp.
He had been working on that for like a couple of years, I think, and then it was just like the whole Prometheus and Covenant came into the picture, and then, that kind of got put in the backlog, and then it wasn't going to happen, and now Ridley has been saying that he would like to see that happen. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Yeah. But yeah, Hellraiser is still. You can see that there's so many fans out there, and like you said, it's a massive mistake that nothing's being done with judgment.
What I meant was that it would be more important to release it now than it would be to release it on October 31st. I didn't mean didn't mean to talk about Halloween the movie.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, because Halloween is not even within the Weinstein Company anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. But I guess it's still part of Dimension. Sometimes I don't know how these things work. It's a little complicated to know what's the difference between Dimension and Miramax and
Weinstein Company.
Weinstein Company. So the movie world is a very complicated world.
Yes, it is. Yeah, hopefully we get an announcement soon of them, or at least a trailer for Judgment would be great.
Oh, man. At this point, I'm more interested in seeing Stranger Things 2 than I am about seeing Hellraiser Judgment. Well, I'm so sorry, Paul T. Taylor. I know you're working hard, but it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a big question mark. We don't know. We don't really know much of anything about how good this movie's going to be. We know it has a relatively small budget, but it's. I think we can pretty much guarantee it's going to be better than Revelations, which is a very low bar.
Sure. Sure.
But.
Sure. Yeah. So that's been a very interesting couple of weeks, and we have a lot of stuff to read and a lot of stuff to catch up on and make reviews about. So I expect some stuff to be coming out as we work through this backlog of stuff. So
well, and because of Hellraiser The Toll and the Next Testament novel, we've been talking to Mark Miller about having him come back on the podcast too. So that might be something here coming up in the near future.
And I also wanted to bring up this. I wouldn't call it breaking news because this is like 7 hours old, but kind of breaking news. Nicholas Vince posted on his page that Barbie Wilde and I will be at the roundtable discussion at the Sitges Film Festival at 5 p.m. on Sunday, 8th of October. He says, I love that we're referred to as vámpiros Cenobites. More details here in Spanish. Yep. I forgot what it's called in Spain. I think in Spain they call Hellraiser Los que traen el infierno, which means the ones who bring hell.
Oh.
Or
nice.
Those who raise hell, I guess. I guess that's, which is interesting. When you think about, we could do a whole podcast just talking about alternate titles from different countries about Hellraiser. Because, for example, in France, they call it the franchise Les Écorchés, which means the people without skin. Yeah, so it's just interesting. In Portugal, they call it Fogo Maldito, which means cursed fire. That's the name of the Hellraiser franchise in Portugal. Wow. It's strange. I know. I guess nowadays they don't do that as much, but back in the day, sometimes they would really change some names, some titles for movies in different international releases.
I always thought of, when I thought of the title Hellraiser, I always just thought it was Frank. He's the one who raised hell, by opening the box. But he's the Hellraiser. Plural kind of implies that it's the Cenobites are the Hellraisers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They bring hell with them. That's the translation of the title in Spanish. And right. In a lot of countries, for example, just going back to Alien, the first movie was retitled The Eighth Passenger. That's the name in Portugal. It was called The Eighth Passenger. That's
pretty cool.
So nowadays everything is colonized They put the American title and then colon the translation, and that's what they do now in international releases. So Sitges Film Festival, which is where is this? Is in Sitges, of course, in Spain.
Anyway, so presumably that roundtable discussion is about Hellraiser and the Hellraiser reunion, I'm guessing.
Well, Sitges Festival is known for having sometimes these master classes, and back in 2009, I think, when I was there, Clive Barker stopped at the Sitges Film Festival. I was doing my master's in Alicante, which is this lovely place by the Mediterranean. And unfortunately, I was just way too busy with lab work. I mean, David, you probably can understand.
Yeah.
And I just was like, man, I would have to take like 4-hour train, and then I had to book a hotel and all that. I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, because I was on a tight schedule and I had all these samples I needed to do. And I ended up not going there. And I regret it to this day, because it was one of the last times that Clive Barker ever went into an international event like this and did an actual master class.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Was that when he got that Lifetime Achievement Award?
Probably. Yeah. Probably something like that, yeah. I think he was collecting something like that, so. But, if you're in Spain, go check out the Sitges Film Festival in October 5 through the 15th, and you'll be able to find Barbie Wilde and Nicholas Vince attending the festival. Los vampiros Cenobites.
All right, and this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. You can find the show notes for this episode, as well as lots of news and features, at www.clivebarkercast.com. Leave comments there, or get them directly into the podcast by clicking the Send Voicemail tab on the right. Please follow us on Twitter at BarkerCast or at Occupy Midian, like us on Facebook, and join the Occupy Midian Facebook group. You can listen on the site or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, TuneIn, Pocket Cast, Google Play, and Double Twist. Look for our apps in the iTunes Store or Google Play Store. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Please take a couple of minutes to leave us a review on iTunes. It means the world to us and helps us spread the word about Clive Barker. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial fan site and podcast that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Films. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.